So today we are going to talk about the new movie that everyone is raving about, Malcolm and Marie. And in watching this movie, I had to ask myself a bunch of times if Mac and I are Malcolm and Marie. So are we Malcolm and Marie?
Yeah, don't damn Malcolm.
Well, I don't know. Find out. Watch this episode of Some Days Today, and we'll discuss when we get there. Welcome everyone to another episode of Some Days Today. My name is Bola.
I'm Mack Ordina.
All right. So let's get started. Let's jump into it. We are here to talk about Malcolm and Marie.
Malcolm and Marie.
I actually think
Eminem.
Eminem. Yes, I actually think it's quite appropriate given Valentine's Day is around the corner. What I thought.
Although, not really a love story. What they said something about it's not.
It's an exploration of love.
Yeah, but I think the director Sam Livingston said something specific like it's not a love story.
It's a story about love.
It's a story about love. Yes.
Yeah, it's not a love story. It's a story about love.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so let's just get started. So I don't have HBO. I don't watch much TV. So I didn't know if there was any sort of buzz.
You don't stop saying you watch much TV. You don't watch much other kinds of TV. You watch Ratchet.
No, I'm just saying recently.
Real
When was the
Housewives.
last time you saw me watching TV? I don't watch TV in like I haven't turned on TV to watch anything in 2 weeks
Sure.
or so. But I was even saying I don't watch the news. So if there was any sort of lead up, because apparently this movie has been out for 2 weeks now in movie theaters. So people have had some time to watch it, digest it, respond to it.
Whoever goes to theaters these days.
Yeah, and
I
apparently.
certainly didn't hear any. Actually, I found out about it yesterday.
Yeah,
Or
that's
the day
when
before. Yeah.
I found out about it on Netflix the day before yesterday when it was doing the promo of, what's going to be available starting tomorrow. So I was like, oh, it's Zendaya. And what's Denzel's son's name?
John David Washington.
John David Washington.
Denzel's son. That's what you need to know.
I did
For
say
all the
that.
people who grew up with Denzel, I mean, the younger kids are probably going to be like, okay, John David Washington. Everybody.
Oh, they're going to be like,
everybody
who's
else is- No, they won't. I mean, Denzel's the last name. They're going to be like, what you mean?
No, Washington is the last name.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're going to be like, who's Denzel?
Yes.
But,
who's Denzel? Exactly.
but it's funny because we were talking about how this man is going to have a tough road ahead of him shaking the Denzel son sort of association. Because I don't even bother trying to figure out his name because I just, in my mind, the placeholder is Denzel's son. So I apologize. I'm going to actually learn the name. John David Washington.
Yeah.
Who has done, he's a great actor. He's a great actor.
Actually, to be honest with you, I haven't liked him so much in anything else I've seen. I mean, it has not I haven't liked him is not precise. I would say I haven't thought he did a stellar
Brilliant
job, of like bringing out all the acting capabilities. Like what I know him best for is that show Ballers. He was
Oh,
on
yeah,
Ballers.
he
He was
was
on
on
Ballers with The
Ballers.
Rock and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean,
I liked
that's
him
just
in
like that's lightweight stuff. It's fun stuff, So he hadn't been in anything that I thought, that was that great. He did also the Spike Lee joint, where he was the
Klansman.
Klansman, Black
Yeah.
Klansman.
Black Klansman.
I didn't really think that was
I just didn't enjoy that movie.
great. Yeah, so
Not that I didn't like his acting. I just didn't enjoy the movie.
it's just there. I wasn't like, oh, there's nothing. It wasn't remarkable acting.
Okay.
It's like whatever.
However, so we're here to talk about Malcolm and Marie. So in setting the stage, the point is I didn't know if there was any hype around it. Whatever critique has been out for the past 2 weeks, I had no idea. So we missed. But we saw it on Netflix yesterday and we decided, let's watch it. So saw it yesterday. And I don't think we talked much about it until we got sort of you know what, let's set the stage for what the movie is about. So do you want to do a summary of what the movie's about. Malcolm and
Should
Marie.
we? Well, I guess if you're listening to this and you haven't watched it yet, then spoiler alert. And all
No,
that
don't
good
do
stuff.
spoiler. Don't do spoilers. Let me just do a
I mean,
high level overview. What it is a story. It's a black couple. Um, the woman is played by Zendaya, and the guy is played by John David Washington, who is Denzel's son. And the scene opens with them coming back from a play or a movie that
premiere.
a movie premiere that John David Washington's character.
Malcolm.
What?
Yes.
Oh, Malcolm.
The character's name is Malcolm.
The character's name, Malcolm, that he had just previewed, and it was getting rave reviews.
Well, no, they were waiting for the reviews. That's precisely it. He was anticipating the reviews.
He was anticipating the reviews, but he felt like it was well received.
Sure.
So Malcolm's character came in like on a high. Like the scene opens with him just being so excited. He's screaming. He's really excited about, just having premiered his movie, and he feels like it's going to be well received, and he's waiting for the reviews to come out. And then you also see his girlfriend, wife, or his love object. And she's in that scene with him. So the rest of the movie unfolds, and you find out more about them as they go on this journey of exchange, conversations between the two of them. So, yeah, I guess we will probably have to do some spoiler alerts. Because of what we're going to talk about.
Personally, I feel like there's a level of spoiler every time you read about what the plot is about.
Yes.
Because I had no idea what the whole thing. And,
we went into it.
Yeah, I didn't read anything about it. Other than the trailers, which didn't really tell you much about who they were.
I didn't even see the trailer, to be honest. So I have no idea.
I mean, the trailer from Netflix. That's how you knew about it, right?
I didn't see the trailer. I saw a picture of two black people and figured this looks like a good movie. I saw a picture of two black people played by, as depicted by Zendaya and John
I swear to God,
David.
if you look at that book one more time. John David.
John David. I don't know. I'm sorry. I keep
two of the apostles.
John David.
David. Is David an apostle? I feel like
Matthew, Mark,
Luke and John. No. There's no David. But David did fight Goliath.
Gotcha. We're not gonna be playing. We're not gonna be pulling cards here in terms of our religious trivia. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention.
He got two Jewish names. That's all we know.
Okay. Is John and David are Jewish names?
Well,
see, there you go. You don't know.
I mean, John would have to be, wouldn't it? Way back then, there was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Weren't they all Jewish?
See, once again, you're asking questions. I don't know. I don't know how to respond to these things. But anyways, yeah. So the movie is generally there's a lot of content. They're talking a lot. There's a lot of dialogue, I guess is the word I was looking for. So there's it's dialogue heavy. And through the exchange of dialogue, you get to find out more about them, the state of their relationship, their history, and their love for each other.
Yeah.
So I guess let me just stop there and just to ask what were your thoughts?
Specifically with what?
Just the movie.
Okay, so there's a lot. Clearly Mr. Livingston was trying to do something that was artistic in the way that he, and whenever you have a movie that's very dialogue heavy, you either do a really good job of it or you don't, because it has to rely entirely on the dialogue.
And the acting.
Yes.
The delivery
from
of
the
actors.
Absolutely. And there's something artistic about it, obviously, because we talked about, I've mentioned this, it's all in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cinematography is how he was in the beginning, but also throughout the film, like showing you the characters from the windows, outside of the windows, because they were in a nice little home too. So I think, the backdrop was also very, very interesting too. And then they talk about, initially they start talking about politics, and not just initially, but like throughout the show the conflict for the director from Malcolm's character was the idea of being always identified with his race when he wanted to, grow past that. Like, I guess he thought he was beyond just his race, and
he felt like his art was universal,
not just, or should be seen as universal. And he thought it was racist that he was always being compared. He was always there was always some kind of association with race with him, and that limited him. In any case, there's that but I think ultimately, like he was also trying to argue, it's not just about a black couple. It's about a couple that is struggling with insecurities, with resentment, with codependencies, and trying to navigate that, and definitely passionate and having been through a lot together and hurt each other and still feeling like they need each other, type of thing. And so it was interesting. The other thing that I want to say about the movie is it's long. It's actually it's not even that long. It's an hour and 40, but it felt long. It felt long because it's just two people, and I felt like they also repeated the same arguments over and over. And this is not like it doesn't happen in real life, but definitely not throughout the course of one night. It was like they came home and then they argued and they argued, and they were supposed to, get intimate,
have sex at some point, but they
just never. At every point, it was like, we just ain't gonna do that. Let's go back to some more arguing. It's like, I feel like even if that does happen, it's typically, you know what? I'm arguing. We're going to our own separate rooms or whatever, or I'm done arguing. Let's get this thing popping.
Nah, Mack. No. I actually felt like the movie was very relatable, and so let me just say, because the question was, did you like the movie before?
I thought it was done. I thought it was done well. I thought it was done well. I liked the movie. It was too long. It could have been cut a lot shorter, and they don't need. It's not necessary that it goes for an hour and 46 minutes. I think they could have taken some parts out. They just kept, rewinding and repeating.
Gotcha. I thought the movie was well acted. The dialogue was amazing. The content was just beautiful. Just the topic that they were grappling with, and we can talk about that. I thought it was just such a beautiful content because you don't really see love portrayed from such an angle, but it's so common and so relevant. So I will say halfway into this movie, because from the minute they got into it, you could tell that there's a connection. They have a connection. They have a love, an intense type of love for each other. And even their exchange, what they talk about, they can talk about all sorts of topics and go in and out of different dimensions quite frequently and easily. To me, it was very relatable. So from the beginning, I felt like, I could see ourselves. I could see us in them. Even them coming back, he's excited. She's trying to make him dinner. I could see us in them. And then as they started arguing, it became actually somewhat uncomfortable because I could then really see us in them. Yes, our past selves. Yes, thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. However, and I don't know, you and I didn't talk about this until maybe the end, but I'm just watching it and I'm seeing this really toxic exchange going on between the two of them. But it's the toxicity is enveloped in between, like just deep love and passion for each other, which is what made you want to root for them, and what made it easy to watch for me, because I was just hoping that they could resolve it. But it was very intense and very toxic. It's a very toxic exchange. But ultimately, I think, in an hour and 40 minutes, that was all you got, was just a bunch of toxic exchange of love, emotion, past wrongs, trying to hurt each other, etc. The reason why I was a little disturbed by it is because of how close to home it hit. And that's really what, I want us to sort of center our conversation around, not mainly us, but just, toxic codependent relationships in general, which is what this highlights, right? And your what you said earlier in terms of people don't argue for this long. You and I have argued for like hours on end, where we can go on and on, spinning around the same topic and picking out nuances, and it can go several hours, not even several hours, it can go 6, 7, 8 hours on the same.
What?
Wow.
Six, that's a work day. Please. 6, 7, 8 hours. No, definitely has not happened for 6, 7, 8 hours. I could definitely. So there's no question that has been long. But here's what I think happens. It's typically when it blows up to that level, because we can go nuances, but when blows up to that level, you're either going to be like, all right, separate corners, and then there's no more conversation for that night, or it's going to be if they've gotten what I was talking about more specifically is they kept on freaking getting to the point where okay, we reconcile, let's get intimate, and then it's like let's. And then no, I don't think that we do that.
No, we definitely don't do that.
Hell?
No, we don't do that. But I was talking more about just the duration of it, just how long and repetitive the conversation can get. And we could even leave and start texting each other, or we used to, and then send emails and and then phone calls. Like when somebody leaves, let me call you back, and because you're trying to like tease out the nuances. So the idea that arguments don't go on for this long, and the reason why I wanted to call this out is because
again,
I listened.
Didn't say it wasn't. It's that it was repetitive.
Yeah.
Doing it. And it's not to say that we don't. Again, I also said it's not to say that we don't repeat the same things. What I want, again, the focus was on we're done here, and then let's go back right.
Yeah, you're saying you don't see that we would be close to reconciling and be ready to get intimate, and then it's like,
yeah.
But then again, one more thing. No, we don't.
Yeah, it either goes all the way left, and then it's like there's no way you're coming back to being intimate. Yeah, because it's just escalating, and then.
But to me, it may not be that. It may not unfold exactly that way with us. But a similarity that I've seen in the past with us is how we could settle one aspect of the argument, and then somebody says something, or in trying to resolve it, a word or a phrase is out of space, and then it opens up another can of worms. So I think that's what the director was trying to convey. Obviously, he wanted to do it over the course of one night. And if you think about it, for them in that night, maybe it happened over 2 hours or so, which is very reasonable for, an argument to take place for that long. But I think that's probably what he was trying to convey. Anyways, the point is, in watching it, I just felt like, oh my God, this is so toxic. However, you could tell that these two really love each other, but they're so intertwined and are sort of just, they've put their hopes and dreams onto each other and expecting the other to deliver in a way that, they're not able to either meet the expectations or they're misunderstanding what those expectations are that they want for each other. So it just becomes a very difficult cycle for them to get out of, which was, kind of heartbreaking, very toxic and heartbreaking. But I thought it was a very good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, there's a lot of thoughts, obviously. So, this is Some Days Today. Yeah. And, we're not necessarily doing just a review on the movie, but trying to relate it to what we like to talk about.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is what I felt like we learned, having been in this position, and are continuing to learn, is the concept of core values and how that applies to everything that you do. Because it's really like when we went to our boot camp, because things were really, really bad, like to that level, marriage boot camp, to that kind of level. Because what was happening with them is something like we've already said we can identify with, is the hurt that you feel that somebody has touched a button. Something is like you got your armor all around it and somebody has said something or behaved in a way that makes you feel a level of insecurity, and then you are then feeling not just even a level of insecurity, maybe like past history, all this, you know, these wounds that is just like that is just built up over time, and somebody has said something
that you haven't healed.
that you haven't healed,
the biggest part of it,
right?
Yeah.
And then somebody says something to
Brush
like,
up against it.
yeah, pick at that, and then you then now feel like you feel a sense of like unresolved, like I'm here, I'm indignant about the way that you've done whatever it is that you've done, and I need you to feel exactly what it is that I felt.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. It was like, okay, once I've now gotten that off, I feel a sense of relief. Yeah, now I've made you feel hurt. Now, the other side is now feeling that hurt, and it's like I got to transfer that energy right back to you, and so it's the back and forth and what was happening. And what we learned from going to the boot camp is like all of the time, and this is why the nuances could be argued ad infinitum, like forever, is because everyone is coming from it. Like you don't realize everybody's coming from it from their own perspective, and there's no right. There is no true right, because it's like, here's how I would like things to be. Well, here's how I would like things to be. If you start from your own premise, your logic is gonna lead you to wherever it does. And so when you start to realize that it's about yourself, and we talked about this on other episodes, but when you realize that it's about yourself and that you don't have to feel devalued by whatever it is that somebody is brushing up on, then that's when you can behave in accordance with how you would actually want to behave if you were feeling if you were feeling secure.
Yeah.
Like you don't, like, if you go back and you think about some of the things that this man has said to her and the things that she said back to him, like it was vicious. Like, wow, like why would you say that? And let's be clear, I know that there's shit that we say to each other that was like vicious as well.
Yeah, we've gone vicious.
Yeah, trying to hurt each other.
Yeah.
And when you look back at it, it's like, that's not who you want to be. That's not how you want to behave. And the only reason you're not behaving that way is because you're not acting within your own core values.
Yeah.
And that is something that, is readily seen when the two people are intimate with one another and they live with one another. But it's something that needs to be understood for any type of relationship that you have, because you feel some sort of hurt and you don't recognize that, behave in a way that's not in accordance with your own values. Yeah. So, yeah.
I agree. And I have 3 points to say to that. Number one, you saying that's not who you want to be when you're saying these hurtful things. From my experience, because I know I've said some pretty shitty, hurtful things to you. But I know when I look back on it and I think about it, I don't even, you say things, it's a mindset thing, which they also discuss in boot camp. When someone has done you wrong, number one, just as you said, Mac, you want to transfer that negative energy onto them because you're like, well, you hurt me so deeply. Now I've got to figure out a way to hurt you. So a lot of times the things that you're saying don't necessarily reflect what you believe about that person. You're just looking to hurt because they have hurt you. And I think it's important to, being on the receiving end, or maybe when you're looking to heal and move past, because I know that's also what inhibits growth or even just healing, because people are hanging on so deeply to what was said. This is what you said, so you must really feel it. When, no, I'm just trying to figure out ways to hurt you, as much as possible. This is not to say that there aren't some hints of truth in what is being said, but I don't think those truths reflect, the true reality of how you see this person, if that makes sense. True love is loving someone in their totality. You love the good, the bad, the ugly. You want it all. I want all of this. So someone calling out just the ugly, making it seem as if it's repulsive to them, is actually not a true reflection of reality. Because if they truly love you, they just see this. Well, I guess that's a nuance to you that you do. You know what I mean? But I love you in totality, so I accept you for all of that, and I wouldn't change you necessarily in that regard. So that's the first point. I don't think, we need to hang on so tightly to what people said when you get into the space of healing, because that definitely keeps you from moving forward. And I know you and I mean, we can talk about how we will pull cards from 10 years ago. I remember when you said that, which is pointless. So that's that. And then the second thing is, what you said as well, hurt people hurt people. So sometimes as well, and I think, I guess that's akin to what I said earlier in point number one, in that, you don't necessarily need to focus so much on what's being said because they're just looking to hurt you. But the second thing is, if you do not heal yourself, if you don't spend time healing yourself, if you have so many things like you were mentioning, there are insecurities, that you have pockets of things that you don't want people touching on. If those things become so many that it makes it difficult for people to even walk, you're constantly going to be getting hurt. And when you're hurt, then it makes it compulsory for you to hurt other people because you feel like people are coming at you. So the biggest thing really is to heal yourself in the wounds that you have, as opposed to guarding them against other people. Because naturally we're going to say things inadvertently to disrupt some things that you're looking to protect. And if you haven't spent that time to really work on yourself, it's going to be a very vicious cycle. And that's what I knew that I had to do. Like part of what we learned from boot camp, you just got to focus on yourself. Focus on yourself and answer to yourself in terms of why certain things are hurting you. And if somebody does something that you feel really upset about, you need to really analyze why that is. What about that thing is making you upset? And then lastly, which is along the lines of, what I talked about, insecurities. A lot of times relationships are really stifled by individual insecurities that we have about ourselves. We could be doing better. I should be doing this. Someone is doing better in this relationship. And what does that mean? Is that going to affect how you see me, etc.? So I think insecurities are also some things that we need to look for in ourselves and what we're bringing to relationships. Those 3 points tie in together, but I just wanted to separate them because I think it's important to be able to break it down if you're looking to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna pick up from the insecurities part, but also, like you said, everything ties together in the idea of, people, the other side saying something that they don't truly even really think. I think the one when they say something they don't truly really think. Personally, I think that's obvious. Like somebody will call you,
You asshole.
well, you're gay or whatever. I mean, you say something like that when clearly
Yeah.
Then but it's those things that I think that have an element of truth, and they may you've left hints that whether it's something that person knows is something that you're that can push your buttons, having to do with your manhood, not just necessarily you're gay or whatever, but your manhood in terms of, or you're being able to provide, or you're being able to do something, or you're for a woman, maybe if they have children, it's like you're being a mother or whatever the case may be. And so there are certain things that I think the other side may have, and it's their own preferences, right? A lot of the time it's like, this is how I would like you to behave, because that's another thing that we talked about, is like sometimes you want this person to behave this way, and they're not doing it, and you want that level of control, so you're picking at it. And because that's also touching on something that person is insecure about, now they're like saying to themselves, oh, this person doesn't see me this way. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why this can be, this type of issue, these types of issues can be extrapolated to other types of relationships, is precisely because when somebody, says something that you yourself have an issue with, you now have got to come in, like you were saying, and say, one of two things. One is, okay, I realize that I have an issue with this. Should I have an issue? Is this something I really want to become better at? Is this something that I feel like is my own value? Should I be doing this? If it is, and it's hard, you've got to now say, okay, today I'm taking the steps to changing that. If it isn't, and you're just sitting here because you don't want to look in a certain way to somebody else, you need to be like, that's not me, and be okay with it. Now, that's not going to necessarily satisfy the other person who's trying to control you. But that's where they have to focus on themselves. And that's the big piece. Everyone in every relationship has to focus on what they can do within themselves in order to either not feel at issue with something somebody else is doing to them, or not to them, something somebody else is saying that may impact them because of their own insecurity, or something somebody else is doing for themselves that you want to take control of, because you don't have to have a person behave in a certain way. You go and do whatever it is that you want to do, and so I do think that there's a lot of times that there is some things that is true about it. The issue from my perspective is that the other person who's receiving it is now saying to themselves that that way that you see me, I cannot have it. And I cannot I cannot have you seeing me this way, because I need you to see me in all positive lights. And the thing is, you have to accept either that I'm just good. You could see, I'm, like, again, like, if, for example, there are certain things that you don't mind somebody looking at you and thinking this is how you are, even if sometimes it may be, in some circles it may be derogatory. So you need to be able to be like, okay, I'm good with that, and or I'm not good with that. Right. I'm going to go and change that. We can all change. This is not a permanent thing. This for me, I want to be better at. And that's the issue. It's because we're not doing that, because instead we want to control. We want to say, I want to be how I am, but I don't want you to see me in the way that you see me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's also sort of just taking a lazy approach to our brand, really, is what it comes across as, if you think about it. It's wanting the adoration, the adulation, the positive, sort of, what's the word? The positive goodwill, built into how people would see you. But, if you're not the type of friend who wakes up in the middle of the night to pick up the phone when your friend calls you, they're not going to see you like that. They may see you as the happy-go-lucky, fun person, and you have to be okay with that. If you want to be the person who, people call in the middle of the night, then you need to put in work in that regard. So you need to also understand, what is the brand? What am I looking to bring into this relationship as, what I'm adding. And those things you have to know and be comfortable with. And then the things that you're not, you either want to improve in those areas or just choose to, because you can't do everything. Those are things that I'm also realizing, particularly around relationships. I mentioned that one of the key areas that I'm looking to explore growth in this year is in relationships, because I want to be better at them. So I know that, generally speaking, I'm not great at relationship building. So I'm trying to be better at it. But yeah, that's a great point. So then I guess that leads me to, there's so many things that I have down here, but the notion of codependency, we can quickly explore it though, because that is what's at the heart of their relationship, right? It's they're codependent on each other. He needs her for his art, right? And she needs him to need her so that she can actually feel like she is doing something beyond being a scared, basic person who's too fearful of going after their dreams.
So I think they both needed each other for their successes. And so you said the heart of their relationship. I would say it's the heart of their resentment, and the resentment is a big part of their relationship, other than the love that is there. And I could see that, and I think, again, the way that we could bring this to the concept of some days today, and finding successes and everything, is, I think, when this is not always the case. There are a lot of relationships that the guy and the girl are just living separate lives. He's pursuing his career. Maybe she's at home, or maybe she's pursuing her career. They're like the twain shall never meet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But definitely in our relationship, and clearly in their relationship, there is what you said, the codependency with respect to their careers as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is resentment, because the idea is, I want to get to a certain place, or you're supposed to be assisting me in getting to that place, and you haven't met your end of the deal. And I do think that it's both ends. I think she's saying, you know what, we're in this together. You're supposed to be bringing me along. But she's also saying, you know what, you you could not be on your own. You would not reach any level of success if I was not there.
If we weren't together.
If not only if we weren't together, because clearly if we weren't together, but if I were not there, you would be lost. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would be lost in this. Like, you need me to get your validation. You need, like, because one time she said, you're the most neediest person, but the most not jealous. Because she was trying to make a point where you need me to be like, here's how things are. Here's, like, I'm coming in and basically shoring you up. The other point of the jealousy was basically like, you don't really like me. You don't really love me. You just need me because I'm the person who allows you to actually be. You know what I mean? And then, so I think in that sense, she believes, and I think he also believes that he needs her in that way too. But he also, like, his resentment was, don't blame me for where you are, because you need to be just as passionate, just as relentless, just as as I am, because I'm not willing to just sit there and wait. Like, you got to show me you want it just as much as I'm showing I want it.
You got to put in the work. You alone have to put in the work and not wait for me to drag you along.
Yep. And that may mean that I'm not going to go in, like you said, I'm not going to drag you. I'm not going to be like, are you ready now? If you don't seem to be ready, I'm going.
Yeah.
And so he's in his mind, he's thinking that the codependency on her part is that she is relying on him to bring her along.
Yeah.
When she is like, you need to go do it on your own. And so, like, that is the kind of thing that's causing resentment. You're not giving me what I want. I'm not getting what I want from you, and that sort of thing. And so, it manifests itself in different ways for different people. But I could definitely, that's one of the things that, I think resonated with us, is just like, we do see ourselves as partners in this career thing.
Yeah.
So,
but not even so much career. I would say life. This life thing,
which
then spills into career. Every aspect of our
life.
Existence. Where I remember when we went to counseling, and the lady who was our counselor, marriage counselor, was like, "Wow, y'all are so intertwined. You need to go figure out how to live separate lives." And I remember thinking, well, that's a dumb idea. Why would we do that? It's called marriage, lady. I mean, I just need you to tell this man how to communicate with me so that we can keep it moving. Like, I don't really understand what you're talking about. Go live separate lives. But it took a while to really understand that. And I think this may happen because she also said that, this happens, and she sees it a lot of times when people get together at a very young age. So your formative years you've spent together. You spent your early relationship dreaming together. This is what we want our lives to be, our relationship to be. This is what the future is going to look like. So now that the future is here, how you've seen it in your mind has sort of played out over and over for so long. Now you need that reality to be true, when she says, really, the key is to go rediscover yourself. Go find out who you are as an individual and who you want to be, and be able to stand on your own. And he needs to do the same thing. And then you guys can come together and maybe redefine what the interactions and the relationship could be moving forward. Which is so true, because that's exactly what it was. We had sort of just been so intertwined everything for so long that we just got to a point where we were tied up in a knot and couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And we had to mentally sort of shift into the mindset of, okay, I need to understand who I am as an individual, and then start to build that up for myself, and then same with you, which is why, some of the experiences that we started having outside of each other, new friendships, experiences, travelings, relationships, they were so important because I felt like we needed to rediscover who we were as individuals and be able to stand on our own without feeling the resentment of being abandoned by the other person.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably this probably applied more to you and your finding your own desires and goals and things of that nature. For me, I'm trying to see what it was. I don't know if it was necessary because I don't know that I ever felt like I need. I mean, clearly we were codependent and still are to
I don't know
a
if you're
large degree.
codependent.
What do you mean?
We're just in love.
Well,
So you would say we're still codependent?
yeah, I think so.
Oh,
To a large
Lord.
degree.
So we
to a
need to
large
be back in counseling.
No, I mean that I don't think codependency is the problem, and that's the point that I'm saying. Like I think personally, I think what we're doing is figuring out how to manage it better.
Mm.
Because I don't think codependency itself is a problem. You should have a partner. You should have somebody who, is helping you. And if that person is also your life partner, that's a great thing. I think the issue is more around the idea of putting the weight on somebody else. Like,
Mhm.
it's like this is your job to do. This is your responsibility. Like it's like, no. If you are willing to be there to support, great. Let's move it. But the responsibility is always on you.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you want to do? If that person wants to do it as well, perfect. Now let's move in concert. If that person doesn't, it's still on you. Like you got to know what you want to do. That may not be the same as what the other person wants to do.
Right.
And I think that's where it is that I felt like you moved to decide, you know what, here's what I want to do with my life. You quit your job, you started doing your own thing. I personally, I'm willing to go along with you with a lot of the things that you do because I think there's a lot of things that we share in common that we like to do in common. Some days today is one of those things. We also like to do business together, and so
And raise these kids.
raise these
Somebody. Well, when we are doing that, somebody got to raise when they're not raising themselves.
Yeah. But the thing, but ultimately, it's like okay, well, wherever it is that we don't agree, you keep it moving. I keep it moving where I want to go.
Yeah.
So that's how it works, and I think that's good.
And I think that's a great point. That is such a great point because so codependency. You're right. I will absolutely sort of concede to that. May not. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. But it may not be all that bad. But I would defer to whatever your psychologist says. Oh, your marriage therapist says. But I think for us though, how it showed up and how it was showing up for Malcolm and Marie is really just the idea of blame. Blaming the other person for either where you found yourself in life or feeling like they need to be responsible for some sort of emotion you may be feeling at a particular moment or picking you up if you're not feeling strong. You're blaming them for a lot of the things that you should be assigning to yourself. The responsibility for what you should be assigning to yourself. So, and I think that's the nature of relationships in general. We find ourselves in marriages, friendships, whatever the relationship is, and because we found someone who loves us and cares for us.
Like that too.
I actually really want to get into that.
What she had said.
No. There's a love component, which we'll talk about. It was actually what he said, but the point is, because we found someone who loves us, similar to our parents growing up, now we are happy to relinquish all responsibilities for managing our emotions to them. If I feel bad, well, you probably did something to make me feel bad. If I feel not as valued, I need you to say something to make me feel better. It's basically constantly looking to the other person to play a role in your emotions, your feelings. And if they are not playing that role well enough, then you're going to blame them for something. So, yeah, I think that, I know for me, that was a huge part of our relationship. And, it had to do with all sorts of things, feeling, well, if you truly love me, you would, show up in this way. You would say these things, you would do certain things. So I think a lot of us, and I still see it in friendships as well. Some of the friendships that I have, there is, you know, there are times when you are ascribing certain responsibilities to those relationships that it may not be able to withstand.
And not, I think it's not just relationships; it's everything. Like the truth is that there is, and this is one of the topics that I want to get because I'm reading a book on mindfulness in plain English. Is that a lot of the times, you're not really truthfully seeing what's at the root of blame is a huge thing because it's not relationship. It's a way to make your all we're doing is trying to make ourselves feel better. And it may not necessarily be long term. Like these are bandages that we are putting, whether it's whether it's because we're not in our core values, like, oh my God, stop, trying to make somebody else stop the issues that we have, or once that issue come in and say it's your fault for doing it, it's just us taking it away from ourselves to say, you know what, don't feel bad right now. It's not you. It's them. Yeah. And we do that everywhere because we don't want to feel good. And that's a temporary relief. But the next time somebody brushes up against it again, here it goes, right back in it. And the truth is you got to figure out how for that not to be an issue. It either is not something you care about, so you're not going to work on it, or it is, in which case you get better. And in the meantime, you will get better and it won't be an issue anymore. So you don't have to worry about it. And then when it isn't an issue anymore, then you don't have to worry about it because now you'll recognize that somebody, that does whatever it is that you wanted to do. And that's what it is. Like you got to figure that out and stop blaming because the blame is precisely what prevents you from actually getting forward. And a lot of times that's yourself as well. Like, and that's the thing that I think needs to be said as well is that it starts first with you blaming yourself.
That's the shame.
That's the shame.
Shame. Yeah. Shame and blame. Yeah. You feel ashamed for either not.
And now you got to transfer it.
Now you got to figure out how to transfer it because your brain quickly, and I tell these kids this all the time. Whatever it is you're feeling, that's just what your brain is serving up at the moment to make you feel good about the situation. But in the next moment, your brain can have a completely opposite stance. Like an instance, this is what I tell them. You guys are so busy trying to prove to each other who's the smartest. Oh, I'm so smart. I'm the, so your brain is sitting here trying to make you feel like, oh no, you're the smartest person in this room. But then when it comes to something, either someone else has done it or someone is asking you to do something, you're quick to say, oh no, I can't do that. I can't do it. I don't know. No one can do this. But then if you say, well, somebody else has done it, well, I don't know how to do it. So how could you be as smart as you're professing to be in 1 second and the next second you're the dumbest part? You can't figure it out. You know what I mean? Like your brain serves up whatever it wants in that moment to make you feel good. It's either making you feel good or it wants you to not think too much. We're not trying to go figure out the calculus of something. Your brain is going to be like, no, just stay put. Just tell them you can't do it. I can't do it. It makes no sense. No one can do this, So it's exactly right. The solutions our brains are serving up are situational. But the shame that we start to feel is really coming from, I think, our higher self. So while we haven't sort of performed to the level that we know we can perform to, or whatever it is, right? You haven't been, you're upset that your career is not going the way it should be going, or, your relationships are not where they should be. Whatever is at the root of that shame, there's something higher that's calling you to do better. I think that, and when you're failing yourself, and whatever is at the root of how you're failing yourself, you have to figure it out. But when you're failing yourself in those moments, the shame is what results from it, I think.
And so Sam Livingston, who did this,
Levinson,
who did this, also does Euphoria, and we had another episode on that special, on Euphoria, the special episode with Zendaya. What's her character's name? I don't even remember. But Rue, yes. And again, like this guy, I think he must either have been an alcoholic or he's dealt
maybe a
with
black
it.
man in his past life.
Well, I don't know about all that. I'm just
Because
saying.
how is he able to get these things how is he able to do it so well?
Yeah, but you know, again, see, now you're sitting here doing exactly what Malcolm was upset about. He's like, oh, black. No, this is a story about people
Their
who are
universal
experiencing
concept.
shame. Exactly.
Okay.
And that's the thing, because this. Remember, we were watching another show. Damn, I can't remember what the name
Don't
of that
matter.
show is. But whatever it was, I was thinking, this. There's no way that this is how life is, you know, because it was white. The white group was like Firefly Lane or some stuff like that.
It's a new show on Netflix.
On Netflix, and I was like, what?
And we're watching them. We're like, who are these people?
and we couldn't figure out whether it was because they were white.
Is it because they're white
like,
and
we
it's a
don't
whole
know this
different culture?
Exactly. But no, this right here is something that I believe is universal, and what he was talking about is universal. And what I want to say is that he must have, because he does this so well, where he exposes and tries to explain the shame that's behind people who become addicts. And the thing is, you know, these people take on an extreme version, and part of that is probably genetic and all that other stuff too that makes them become addicts. But it's just a reaction to the shame that other people have as well.
Yeah.
And so the shame
they're trying to numb it. You're trying to numb the
get
shame.
rid of it. It's like, you know,
the pain.
And so when you feel this level of shame, you said that it was your higher self. I don't know that it's your higher self, because it could be that this is not something that you even really care about if you think about it. That's why mindfulness is important, because if you think about it, like society may give you a role that says, here's how you should be. Yeah. And then you're like, damn, I'm not living up to that role as a society. And then when you really think about it, it's like, but do I actually really want to be this? And when you realize, no, this is not my value, that's when you drop it. It's when it is your value. Yeah. This is what you said you wanted. This is what you, like, you can say to yourself, I want you to see me this way, but I don't really want to try to be this way. Then that's a freaking problem, because if you want to, this is what you're saying, I want you to see me this way because that's who I say I am, then now you got to do the work in becoming it. And so, like, and so that's why for me, it's like the shame is what keeps you back, because when you start to feel ashamed, as opposed to you saying, you know, all right, now let me start to be that way. You now start to say, oh my God, I've got to numb it. I've got to figure out how to transfer it to somebody else. I've got to figure out how to stop you from seeing me as who I am actually behaving like. I've got to do all these other things, when in fact, the first thing you need to be like, is to say, I'm human. That's quite okay.
I'm not perfect. It's
not,
grace. It's giving yourself grace.
Giving yourself. It's quite okay. Yes, that is. In fact, if I did not recognize me as not being there yet, I could not actually take the step to get there. Right. So it's quite okay.
Right. You know and also, what we don't do well is, you know, sometimes when our loved ones are trying to give us signals about how we're coming across, because there's so many blinders that we have about ourselves. So if someone is saying, well, you know, sometimes you do come across as a little lazy, if that's something that you don't want to be, a lot of times what would make sense would be for us to say, that's interesting. I guess I never realized. Tell me more about that. How am I? Because I don't want to be lazy. But a lot of times, not only are we annoyed that you even feel that you this way, that you think I'm coming across lazy, we can even live with that. You know, it's okay if you think I'm lazy. But the fact that now you're telling me and making me aware that you think I'm lazy is problematic.
Yep. I just don't want you to think.
No, it's not even that. It's okay for you to think. I don't want you to tell me that you're thinking it. I don't want you to tell me, because I think there are times when, you know, we may be okay with what our significant others thinks of us. You probably, you know, you may be like, he probably thinks I'm the worst. But then the minute he says, you are the worst, now it becomes an issue.
No, because I don't think you think that. You hope that he doesn't think that, even if you may say it.
Okay. But yeah, so the other concept that I thought they explored really well is just the nature of love. And I think that's what I was, go ahead.
Can I go back to the thing?
Sure.
All right. So what you were saying is you think that the person already sees you this way. No, what she was saying is, at one point she was making a point like, the reason why you're not jealous is because you already have accepted me. That's when she was also talking about, like you, what you said with the parents. The person who loves you, once they love you, you stop trying to care or whatever. Like you start wanting them to just be there. She was saying like what the reason why she doesn't say these things, like because there was a part in the show where he was just telling her all the bad stuff that he had done, bad stuff, quote, like all the, his infidelities and how he went to the seedy motel and all this stuff. He was like, I would never say that to you. I don't even want, because I don't want to know them. And the reason I don't want to know them is because I value mystery. And the mystery is that I don't know whether or not I'm the best. I want to try to be the best because I don't know whether or not I'm completely there. And the reason I'm bringing that part out is because, in your mind, I think, in her mind, but in, the individual's mind, they are hoping, I think, I'm hoping that you see me as great. I don't want you to confirm. Even if in my mind I'm like, God, I think they may not love me. I think they may not truly love me, but I'm striving for them to love me. And if you say something that confirms it, that's when it becomes a problem. Because now it's like, it's not that I didn't think that there's a possibility of it. Now you just confirmed the thing that I've already feared that you would have an issue with, or the thing that I'm insecure about. Now you confirmed it. And now it's a problem for me. Now the mystery is not there. You've just told me that you think I'm terrible.
Okay. I think this is great because it actually takes me to the topic that I wanted to speak about. And I felt the same thing, but from what Malcolm said, a similar thing that you said. And it was the concept of earning love. Meaning, I think we walk around, the only type of unconditional love, for the most part, that we are very familiar with is the one that our parents show us. And I think the reason why, for those who had parents in their lives, because I'm sure there are people.
Or parents who showed them unconditional love.
Or parents who showed them, So I don't want to speak blanketly. But I think in general, there are certain loves that we didn't have to earn. People just love you because you existed, And I think that is the parent-child love, And I think the child feels it for the most part. As they evolve, because, the parent is there from when the child knew nothing, when they had to wipe their drools and, wipe their bottoms and teach them the things that they knew. So I don't think the child feels a sense of insecurity per se around what I don't know. I need to position myself a certain way with my parents, at least, in the formative years. Then maybe get to a point where now you need to show that you've made it, where you start to position yourself with your parents. But for the most part, you understand, listen, at my worst, these people ain't got no other choice but to love me. In fact, that's when they stay ready to demonstrate how much they love you, because they don't want to see you hurt. They don't want you to feel any sort of angst. They love you in spite of you, of all of your characteristics and beings and everything. That is the definition of true love, because you're not having to earn it.
This is really some parents stuff. There's a lot of parents who are like, you ain't got no grades? Wait.
That's true. Especially even when you think about identity. Like some people who are, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Mm-hmm. I think, generally speaking, when we think about parents, because a lot of parents will say, I will jump in front of a car for my child, So there's some deep love or bonds between parents and children. For them, I would say, for the most part. But I think outside of that, we occupy the space where we think we are earning the love of the people in our lives. And Malcolm really depicted this, because he was like, with Marie, when he went into his long story about how, you've done this, you've been an alcoholic, I was there when I drove you here, and you've spent your whole being trying to justify, or just trying to get a sense for, what is it about me that you love? Like he was like, you spend so much time trying to basically, just push against the notion of him, you loving me this much, because, she's trying to say, well, I'm this bad, I'm all this other stuff, if you remember that exchange. And he was like, it just never occurs to you that in spite all of these, like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have, I just love you. Like, you are not, I'm not trying to have you earn my love. I'm not trying to have you prove yourself to me. When you're at your weakness, I love you. When weakest, I love you. When you're at your best, like, I just love you. So this idea that I'm going to see how much you love me, or if I say this, does this push you away, or can you show me more of your love? Like, it's irrelevant to him, because he was like, you just don't even understand. Like, this is who I like. The whole package I'm here for, and I think, when we think about, I was trying to tie this to the concept of shame. Well, I don't want you thinking about me that way. And that also circles back to what I said in the beginning. People may say certain things about you, but they love you. If they truly love you, they love you regardless. I may notice that, oh yeah, you're always late. But that has nothing to do with whether or not I'm going to stop loving you, right? Like, the love is regardless of whether or not you're showing up on time or not. Now, we may need to work together to make sure that you can be on time to the next meeting so we don't miss a deal. We can talk about that. But that, it doesn't touch the immense love that is reserved for you. Like, criticism and love, two different spaces. They're not occupying the same space. And I think a lot of times in our relationships, because we don't have deep connections in our relationships outside of the familial one, because we don't have that, we don't show each other unconditional love. Our loves are very much predicated on, well, what can I get from this person? I can be your friend, but I'm trying to see where you can take me or whatever. And we probably also extrapolate that same idea to, romantic relationships, where I think he's with me because I look good in a bathing suit, or I'm with him because, we could build something together, as opposed to, I'm just in love with your essence.
So a couple of thoughts about that from me. The first is, I don't think that I
caught that.
No, not that I caught that. I feel like I don't know that is something that exists with us. So it's not as resonant. In the sense that,
which part?
The idea of
conditional love.
Conditional love.
Gotcha. Uh-huh.
Because for me, like, there are probably people who live in who are in relationships where it's because you're providing financial security, or not just even security. We're talking about, like, financial excess, because I think every woman to a certain degree will, wants that financial security. Mm-hmm. Not every, but generally
most human beings, yeah, want some sort of security. So I see your point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, but so for me, for our relationship, I don't think there was ever a question in my mind that it was like, we are here for each other. Mm-hmm. Well, at least not in my mind. I don't know if it was in your mind that, even though for me, it wasn't necessarily the issue of whether or not, you're there for me completely. It was more of the idea that I want to be seen in a certain way by you, and mm-hmm. I may or may not want to do the work to be seen that way.
Gotcha.
But so that's the one thing, because those two things actually can exist. And I think that's exactly what I was thinking, that line where he says, what, you can't imagine that I love you for you. Like, for her, she wasn't sure. She specifically wasn't sure. There was mystery. She wasn't sure whether she was the best and all that other stuff. And part of that is because she wasn't sure that she wasn't comfortable with her own self.
She wasn't sure she was lovable.
She wasn't sure she was lovable.
Yeah.
Because of what she had been through. And so she, and for her, I think that's what was at the root of her issue, is that she wasn't sure she was lovable, and she was then continuing to, see things in a light that wasn't necessarily how you needed to see things.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the representation. Again, we talked about how you can find little nuances in every argument and then argue it forever. That, to me, is another point of this story, is how all of it is partially true. What she was saying in her argument about, you didn't thank me because A, B, and C is true, but it's also true, that, she probably was not necessarily pushing as hard as she could have. And that's part of why he was like, you know what, I can't wait for you to push. I need to go do my masterpiece. Mm-hmm. And so, like all of these things are partial truths to it. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what the partial truth is because it's about how you come mm-hmm. to the table. And, and so if you're going to sit there and pick on the partial truths and also sit there and be like, well, here's a part that I don't like you thinking of me as, and I'm going to focus on that. Like, that's how you do yourself a disservice. Yeah. Because there are so many different perspectives, and the idea is you come at it from the perspective that is the most positive, is going to be the most productive, is going to help you get better, and therefore help the relationship get better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think Sam Levinson, who is the director and writer of this movie, was very right that this is not a love story, because typically you experience love stories as just beautiful, romantic. They unfold happy endings, and even if they do have conflict, it's resolved in a meaningful way at the end.
And they're definitely not as cruel to each other.
And they're not as cruel to each other. But when he said this is a story of love, I just think it's so beautiful, and it permits different types of love to occupy that same space and still take on the definition of love, right? I'm not recommending toxic relationships at all, but I do think it's important to understand that just because your love or the love journey you have with someone is not effortlessly unfolding in a fairy tale doesn't mean that there isn't deep love there. And sometimes you have to just try to tease out, what's going. I know even when we were at our lowest, when we were the cruelest to each other and, just doing the most, I never doubted that we loved each other. I never doubted your love for me, and I don't think you doubted my love for you. And I think that's what's important, because I don't know that we understand just the very complicated nature of human relationships enough to, be able to sort of see things for what they are. And sometimes when love is causing you deep pain, we want to run away from it as opposed to try to explore why is something that's meant to sort of be an asset to me now being turned into a weapon, right? And I need to understand that, and I don't think we do enough. We spend enough time trying to assess it. We just want the good for what it is, but I think love shows up in a lot of. The essence of life is love, and we see that in a lot of different forms. Human beings. We just see love portrayed in nature in a lot of different ways, and we should be able to understand that is likely what will happen in our relationships as well. It's not always going to be just this beautiful one-sided thing. You want to spend time in that space as much as possible, but sometimes when it's complicated, hopefully you've worked on yourself enough to see it for what it is, and then be able to do the necessary work to dissect it, and then get yourself, and hopefully your partner can do the same thing, so that you guys can get back on, that space, get back in that space of reconnecting. But it's complicated. It's not easy.
Definitely, and there's no question about it that this is a love story. A story of love, not a love story. I'm pretty sure that there are tons of people that can relate to this. I can sense that a lot of people can feel the passion. The reason why a lot of people would remark on how good it was and how the acting was is because you can relate. Like if you see somebody behaving in a way that doesn't seem like it's true, then you're gonna be like, well, this is done poorly. Yes, you've seen people who are together, and in the public eye, they're like getting along and laughing. Because a whole ton of people who would see our relationship would probably be like, wait a minute, y'all got to that level? There's no way. But the truth is that a lot of other people can relate to the situation where it's me and you. I've got a whole set of freaking issues with the world, work, whatever. I'm coming back. I'm frustrated. You're coming back. You're frustrated. We're bringing that together, and the clashes are happening with the one person you have to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
And because of so many things that you don't understand about your own issues, and so many things that she doesn't understand about her, or the other person doesn't understand about her issues, the clashes are happening. And a lot of people have been in situations where they know that passion has come out and existed. And so when we talk about toxic relationships, there is no question that it was toxic. The question is, when do you and should you leave? And from my perspective, verbal abuse or mental or emotional abuse is very bad. But I would say, like, if it gets physical, that's definitely an issue that you probably need to part your ways from. But I also think that if it doesn't get that bad, hopefully, if it is mental and verbal, like, you need to seek some help if you really value that relationship. If there are many different areas where you guys do a good job and get along, and this is a good person and it, and there are ways that you can do better. Like, as with everything, you got to work on it and get to the point where you can see what's at the root of all the issues that are happening. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the case with everything. And I think ultimately, what we found is that it's always about working on yourself.
Mm.
And when both partners can realize that, that's when you can start making headway.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, this was good. I would recommend. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this movie. I love dialogue in general, and anytime something is done so well and so dialogue heavy, I like to go back and sort of just assess it and pick up some of the things that I may have missed. So I'm gonna go back and watch it. But I thought it was really good. I know some of the points we wanted to make that we're not gonna get to here is, one about your relationships propelling you either forward or it could sort of hold you back. So because love is not perfect, it's imperfect, but it can be beautiful. It also hurts. So it's a delicate thing, but I think if you're able to find relationships or find yourself in a union that can be an asset to you, I think it can really push you forward. Of course, if it's not done well, and if you're fighting, if it's toxic and it remains in that space of toxicity, it can also hold you back. So some days today being what it is, you definitely need to think about your relationships, your mindset, what you're working on with yourself to see what you need to do to continue to move forward as an individual, but as well as in all of your initiatives. So that's something that you really have to spend some time thinking about. And it's not so easy as, if you were to tell your friend and they're like, oh, please leave him. He did what? It may not be that easy. You may need to really do some thinking about what's going on. We seem to love each other, but we are, out here hurting each other. So how can we really get back to a point where we can leverage this energy, this beautiful energy, in support of what we're looking to accomplish?
Right. And I would like to add, if both partners, that's the thing that I should have said. If both of you if both of you are genuinely trying to improve, that's probably where it is that you should stay. Like,
Yeah.
if for example it's toxic and then you're trying to make it work, but he's like, I ain't
Like you and those tries.
So if both partners appear to be trying to make it better, I think that's great. And then the next step is understand that it's yourself, because I think I think when both parties start working on themselves, that's when you improve as a human. That party improves as a human. Together, you're better as human beings together. And then, so the last piece I would say is, um, it's not going to be easy. Like, the fact that you are starting to improve, you're going to have a whole bunch of issues in between. It's a constant process, as with everything else. You're growing, like, and if you're not growing, then that means you're dying. So you should be growing anyways. That means, and a lot of that happens through pain. No pain, no gain is not just about being in the in the weight room. Like, you gotta go through it and have your metamorphosis and come out better every time.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful movie. I enjoyed it. I will go back and watch it again, like I said. But what I am happy to kind of see is that we are on the other side. I think when you and I talked about it, we were like, oh my God, that was that was a lot. That was us. But thankfully, I feel like we're so good. We're so good. So
we definitely do not get into that type of shit anymore.
I mean,
we still fight, but it doesn't last as long.
No.
We don't stay mad as long. We used to go weeks.
Yeah, we were, but we're also not cutting each other because I mean,
we don't go deep. We don't go deep.
That's a lot. But thank God for progress. Thank God for progress. Should we say cheers to that? All right. Well, you know what? Thank God.
Really? I don't know.
I think it's worth it.
No, listen. Seriously, we might have to cut that out. Some sappy shit.
All right. Yeah. So thanks, guys, for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below because I really do want to get your thoughts on what you think about Malcolm and V. And see if it resonates in any way. I mean, some people it may not resonate with at all. So I am curious to see what your thoughts are. But let us know. Thanks again for watching Some Days Today, where we encourage you to do epic dope ass shit
every day.